Hi guys, Freddy here. Welcome back to the desktop for another retro RPG. And this week I would like to present this, the Star Wars First Edition Rebel Alliance Sourcebook by West End Games, and it came out in, they actually dated the month, first printing October 1990. So this is a 1990 sourcebook for the First Edition Star Wars role-playing game. And in one of my very first videos on this channel, I covered the other source books for the Star Wars game, talking about how influential they were. Because as role-playing books, they actually detailed a lot of the background of the Star Wars universe in a way which had never been done before. These days you get the complete cross-sections books and all the source books with details of every little background droid and character. But back in the 1990s, the late 1980s, you didn't get that kind of source material. So these source books came out and they actually provided all that for you. They gave the details. They also had all the artwork by the designers of the series of movies. So you got all the preliminary sketches for speeder bikes and starships. So you were getting a lot of background pictures as well as lovely full color plates. So these source books were very much coffee table books as well as just a role-playing game. And a very enjoyable role-playing game because I have continued to play Star Wars, the West End Games version, up till now. I was playing it last weekend. But these books were absolutely fabulous. Now, I covered the first three, so the Star Wars role-playing game itself, the Star Wars Sourcebook, and the Imperial Sourcebook, as I said in one of my very first videos. And I mentioned this book, and it's taken me this long to get back to it. So here we are 2 years later, and I'm finally getting around to the Rebel Alliance Sourcebook. And that is because they kind of had used up all the artwork they'd got. They'd kind of started reducing prices of books because the full color plates obviously cost a lot more. And I would imagine the Imperial Sourcebook didn't sell as well as the first two books. So this is a bit of a cheaper one, and it's not as much of a coffee table book. It's a very good role-playing book. But let's start on the back cover, and then we'll plunge into the guts of it. So, the back cover. Star Wars Rebel Alliance Sourcebook by Paul Murphy. A terrible civil war burns throughout the galaxy. A ragtag group of freedom fighters has risen from beneath the dark shadow of a tyrannical empire. Against all hope, they have dealt the oppressors a mighty blow. But although the Death Star has been destroyed, Imperial troops have driven the freedom fighters from their hidden base and pursue them across the galaxy. The Emperor has turned his attention towards extinguishing the last spark of resistance, and everywhere the forces of the Empire have redoubled their efforts to seek out and destroy the elusive prey. Throughout the vastness of space, heroic beings engage in a desperate struggle against the overwhelming might of the Empire. They are ill-equipped and pitifully few, but their courage and determination has fostered new hope for freedom in the galaxy. These are the men, women, and aliens of the Rebel Alliance. Companion to the Star Wars role-playing game. Includes game statistics for characters, droids, weapons, and the equipment of the Rebel Alliance. 144-page book. Features in-depth examination of the birth and early growth of the rebellion. Illustrations, photographs, maps, and diagrams, some never before published. Detailed reports of the Alliance military and political hierarchies since the destruction of the first Death Star. Data on the Alliance intelligence, operations, equipment, and underground cell networks. Descriptions, diagrams, and statistics for Rebel land vehicles, ships, and equipment. Updated information on Rebel bases, plus recruitment and training protocol. Information for movie fans and game players alike on the heroes of Star Wars Galaxy, the Rebel Alliance. And it does have some interesting stuff in it. If we start flicking through. Prologue, The Growing Rebellion, to Mon Mothma, from Ahul Hextrophon. Now there's a spacey name if ever we've heard one. And I've got the introduction. I'll center the book so you can see it a bit better. Nice pictures within it. The birth of the rebellion, detailing the history of the Alliance and the leaders. Now this does somewhat stick to what's been revealed through the movies, because we've got Mon Mothma, we've got Bail Organa, and detailing the conception of the Alliance. Formal Declaration of Rebellion. We, the beings of the Rebel Alliance, do this day send forth this declaration to His Majesty, the Emperor, and to all sentient beings in the galaxy, to make clear to all the purposes and goals of this rebellion. And there's nice background information here. It really is lovely. You've got to remember that it was the Star Wars Sourcebooks, the role-playing game, that actually revealed the name of Emperor Palpatine, because in the movies he was just the Emperor. We didn't know he was Palpatine until the prequels, or, if you're a role-player, from these Sourcebooks. Alliance Intelligence, we've got detailing them. The layout, so the Chief of Intelligence through the different branches. So you've got intentions, operations, and counterintelligence. Networking, so the sector command leading down to network leaders and their members. Intelligence slang. The Alliance military, how it's laid out. Detailing this in quite a lot of detail, like the Imperial Sourcebook laid out the organization of the Empire, but this is going into what the players will generally be part of. The Air Fleet Command there. Urban guerrillas, so we've got different types of rebel soldiers, Spec Forces Marines, Spec Forces Urban Specialists. Just the stats and detailing them out here. General Modine's report on Operation Cobalt. Basara, who appears to be a monocle or cybernetically enhanced Wookiee. Just lots of characters. Combat starships. So, detailing how the rebels get access to their ships. What tactics they use. Capital ship fire arcs. Battle line maneuvers. The Alliance fleet main battle line. So, starfighters on the outside, different corvettes and cruisers as close support, and then the big cruisers in the middle. The tactics they use, the Akbar slash, capping the T, the brawl. Various tactics for the fleets, how the wings are stationed, different capital ships. The Corellian Engineering Corporation gunship, which was based on one of the early models for the blockade runner at the start of A New Hope. Standard Corellian gun lasers gunport. So that was actually an illustration of the Millennium Falcon's turret. But they've reused it here. We've got the Tantive 4. I've got to remember how to pronounce that right since I learned that Tantive wasn't its name. The Tantive 4 blockade runner with the deck layouts. Scales, you can see the Mon Calamari cruisers down to the corvettes compared to against a Star Destroyer. The various starfighters that they use. So we've got a breakdown of the X-Wing here. 5 stages of starfighter combat. It goes into a lot of tactical stuff in here, which is very, very useful for the role-playing game. Not that interesting from just a coffee table book side of it. The Z95 Headhunter, which had been introduced in the Han Solo novels and was based on the early concept artwork for the X-Wing. So they incorporated that as the sort of prototype early versions of the fighter. And of course, Z95s ended up in the Clone Wars series later on. Blueprints for the Corsair Long Probe, the Y-Wing, the Scout version of it. The details of the A-Wings, different recognition charts. Then we're on to ground battles. So, showing the different Rebel Alliance uniforms. Infantry weapons, the different weapons that they use, including the laser towers that they fight the AT-ATs with, and the giant Planet Defender ion cannons they shoot at the Star Destroyers. Got some vehicles here, various types of fast scout vehicles, speeders like the snow speeders. They don't feel too in the Star Wars universe, but I suppose it makes sense that the Rebels do have access to something other than just standard snow speeders. Different tactics they use against AT-ATs, showing the scales as well. And they're onto droids. So we've got a standard pilot droid, espionage droid, worker droid, servant droid. We're onto Alliance bases, how they're set out. And the artwork, although it's not the concept artwork that I really liked seeing in the other source books, it is very nicely done. It's up to the standard high level of the West End Games stuff. And we've got the freighters. So we've got a YT-1300 here showing the strap-on cargo pods, which again is something which still exists in the Star Wars universe. This is basically the first time we see it. But that's in the Haynes YT-1300 manual that came out a couple of years ago. It shows the cargo pods from the top-down view. So these things were added in this role-playing game back in 1990, but still exist in the universe today. This really did detail stuff. Medical frigates, medium transports, recruitment and training, going through what happens when you join the Rebel Alliance. Afterward, a legacy for our children. Thank you for your... I thank you and your office for your brilliant efforts in compiling this report from Mon Mothma. And that's the Rebel Alliance sourcebook. It is a lovely sourcebook. It's very useful for the role-playing game, especially from a games master's point of view of wanting to know the tactics that the Rebel Alliance will use against the Empire. It's not as nicely presented as the Imperial sourcebook or the original Star Wars sourcebook, though definitely was a lowering of quality somewhat. But it's still a very, very good sourcebook and highly recommended, especially if you can get your hands on it and you've bought the reprinting of the first edition Star Wars. But I think that's all I've got to say on this. As always, many, many thanks for watching. Please like and subscribe if you like what I'm doing. But most of all, you look after yourselves. And I'll catch you later. Bye now.